Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome into another edition of the Jim Bratton Podcast. I'm finally back after a few weeks of dealing with stomach bugs and just the busyness of life and other things of that nature, but I'm finally back, and as you may be able to see, I don't know if everybody on the video can see what I'm wearing, but I've got my Titan shirt on today, which is a little bit ironic because on today's edition of the show, I'm going to do something that I, as a fan, almost never do, and that is I'm actually going to be a little bit critical of the Tennessee Titans organization because the last 3 weeks, the last 3 weeks for the Tennessee Titans have been a little soap opera-ish in many ways, with all of the miscues that have been going on with Brian Callahan, the play calling, and the recent trade that took place, which I will get into a little bit more in detail in just a few moments. But not a good time to be a fan of the Tennessee Titans right now, to say the least. It's tough. It has been a tough 3 weeks, that is for sure. And let me get into the reasons why that has been the case. I guess I'm just going to go ahead and dive right into it. I'm kind of going to keep today's show a little bit more brief because as I'm sitting here recording this, the Dublin game is on right now between the Minnesota Vikings and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and so it'd be nice to catch as much as I can of the second half of that. So I'm kind of going to keep today's episode a little brief, but I guess I'm going to go ahead and dive right into the rundown here. Why has it been such a tumultuous 3-week stretch for the Tennessee Titans? Well, all starts at the top, doesn't it? And Brian Callahan just continues to mystify me and the Tennessee Titans fan base in many ways because of his play calling and his, at times, clock management skills. And you know what I just realized yesterday as I was watching the Tennessee Vols and Mississippi State game? For those of you who did not get to see that game, let me tell you, Josh Heupel's clock management skills are absolutely mind-boggling to me. That man, and to be fair to Josh Heupel, his team still found a way to win the game, unlike what Brian Callahan's team has been able to do. But that's really the main difference between the two, is despite both of their inabilities to manage a game clock at times, Josh Heupel's team finds ways to win ball games, whereas Brian Callahan's team just does not. And at the end of the day, that's really the name of the game, so to speak. But let me get back. That's enough of a sidebar about the Tennessee Volunteers, but go Vols and whatnot. But let me get back to the main point at hand here. Callie. And that is his nickname. For those of you who do not know, they call him Callie for some reason. I guess it's obvious why they call him that, but I mean the way he's been coaching over the last 3 weeks, you wouldn't think he would have earned the right to have a nickname like that. But anyway, Callie, or Brian Callahan, whatever you want to call him, he's got a lot of miscues. He's got a lot of things that he needs to get cleaned up, and get cleaned up in very short order, by the way, because time is very much running out on his tenure as head coach of the Tennessee Titans, it seems. And the growing list of miscues of Brian Callahan, going back to the Denver game, where he seemingly forgot what a catch is. And I cannot remember exactly who it was, but basically whoever it was, their elbow was in bounds at the time of the catch. And for those of you who remember the specific play, you know exactly where I'm going with this. But in the NFL, as far as the inbounds rule is concerned for catches, an elbow being inbounds basically means the same thing as someone having their knee inbounds when they make a catch. And should Brian Callahan have challenged that? Probably. I mean, the fact of the matter is you're on the road against a team that in the Denver Broncos that you probably have no business playing as well against them as they did, because at one point they were up by 3 at the end of the first half of the Denver game. They ended up going into halftime down by 1, I believe, because of Brian Callahan's miscues. But it's just little things like that cost teams football games. And then we get into the time management, again, going back to Josh Heupel, the time management lapses in judgment, so to speak. But and another thing that adds on to that is the conservative play calling of Brian Callahan going back to the Denver game. Why do you not, first of all, going back to what I was saying before, they were up by 3 at the end of the first half. Why do you not run the ball to sort of run out the clock and limit Bo Nix, who, as college football fans and really pretty much every NFL fan knows at this point, with the way Denver has played offensively over the last couple of years, why do you not run the ball, make the Denver Broncos use their timeouts, and limit Bo Nix's ability to drive down the field as much as possible? Why? Why are you not doing that, Brian? Why? It is absolutely mind-boggling to me. But perhaps one of the reasons why Brian Callahan is struggling in this regard is because up until this week, up until he relinquished the play calling duties. I'll get into who he relinquished them to here in just a second, and why the decision to do that is also a little bit mind-boggling to me. Perhaps the responsibility of being a play caller and a head coach is not, and to be fair, not a lot of coaches run game plans like this. It just sort of depends on the team and the way they want to run their particular operation and whatnot. But going into my next point here, Brian Callahan has relinquished the aforementioned play calling duties to not the offensive coordinator, Nick Holtz, but the actual quarterback coach, Bo Hardegree. And it's just amazing to me how you can have an offensive coordinator and then skip right over him, because typically the offensive coordinator is the one that the aforementioned play calling responsibilities go to. Brian Callahan skips right over Nick Holtz and goes to Bo Hardegree, who last served as an offensive coordinator in, I believe, 2023, when he was part of Josh McDaniels' staff with the Josh McDaniels. That's all I'm going to say about Josh McDaniels before I get too far into a sidebar about how bad of an NFL head coach Josh McDaniels was. But Bo Hardegree was the interim offensive coordinator on Josh McDaniels' staff, and did not work out well for that staff in Las Vegas, as Josh McDaniels, of course, ended up losing his job because, as I just mentioned, he is an absolutely terrible head football coach. But fast forwarding to 2025, Bo Hardegree is the quarterback coach, which is, again, interesting, because if you have an offensive coordinator on staff, why are you giving the play calling duties to the quarterback coach, who probably needs to be spending as much time with the, I don't know, the guy that you picked number one in the draft to be your franchise quarterback, Cam Ward? He probably needs to be spending as much time with Cam Ward as humanly possible for him to do. But that is not going to be the case with the Tennessee Titans, apparently, as the play calling duties are now going to Bo Hardegree. Now, that may be a good move. It may not. I sort of tend to have my reservations about it, if I'm being honest. And again, that pains me to say as a Tennessee Titans fan. But the way things have been going this year, it's kind of hard to find reasons for optimism. And it's just been an absolute grind of a 3-week stretch. But, you know, maybe it's the spark that the Tennessee Titans need. Who knows? Maybe, perhaps with Bo Hardegree, and I cannot remember exactly the way that he called the plays with the Las Vegas Raiders, or what sort of role he might have had in the game planning, because because one of the things that got Josh McDaniels that head coaching job is his ability as a play caller, which it's really sort of easy to get head coaching jobs or build up a resume for head coaching jobs when you're a quarterback that you had for several years that he spent in New England in order to get him to be in that position was one guy named Tom Brady. It's very, very easy to build a resume based on having TB12 as your team's starting quarterback, but I digress. So maybe the play calling will be good. Who knows? Maybe it will be even worse. Time is going to have to tell the story on that, and we will find out about that in the next hour and a half. I believe it's an hour and a half until the Titans kick off at 12. But the other thing, before I get into the last thing I'm going to be talking about, which I've sort of teased this on social media leading up to this show, I sort of teased this hot take that I had surrounding Brian Callahan. I'm going to come back and do that at the very end of the show because, oh boy. Really, because I'd better get it off my chest, because the longer I sort of hold it in, the less hot it becomes based on some of the things that the Tennessee Titans have done in the course of the last 3 weeks, the last week or so in particular. But before I get to that, the Titans have also made a move recently in the transactional department. They have traded away starting cornerback Jarvis Brownlee Jr., and they have traded him away to the New York Jets in what is basically a pick swap. Basically, I've got the terms of the trade right here in front of me. The Tennessee Titans receive a 6th-round pick in the upcoming NFL draft, whereas the New York Jets receive the aforementioned Jarvis Brownlee and a 7th-round pick in this year's upcoming NFL draft, the 2026 NFL draft. And basically, there's a lot of mixed reports on this. The initial reaction is, why would you trade one of your starting cornerbacks who has shown promise at times, especially the way he had to step in last year, going back to Chidobe Awuzie's, and a lot of you may be asking, Jim, who is Chidobe Awuzie? Exactly. He was one of Ran Carthon's former general manager, Ran Carthon's questionable decisions, because the Titans decided to move on from him after Mike Bergonzi and Chad Brinker sort of took control of the football operations. And of course, yes, to be fair, Chad Brinker was in the front office last year, but how much say did he really have over the personnel? Nobody really knows besides the people in that building, I suppose. But the fact is, Jarvis Brownlee sort of stepped in and played pretty decently. And that is one of the things that would lead you to come to the conclusion of why are they trading away one of their starting cornerbacks. And when we got further into the news cycle, apparently some of these reports that I've seen online suggest that Jarvis Brownlee is not necessarily a guy that you want to have in your locker room. This is intel going back to his college days that suggest he is something of a, quote, cancer, unquote, in the locker room. And when words like that get thrown around, that is obviously something that you want to distance yourself from sooner rather than later in many ways. And so I guess Mike Bergonzi felt the need to go in that direction. And we could get into, I've also seen people getting into the argument of, was the trade value enough for a guy like Jarvis Brownlee, who is, again, a starting corner? Time is going to have to tell the story on that. There's a lot of things that need time to play out, especially when you're trading draft picks like this, because you don't know what's going to happen with the draft picks in many ways. And so that is a interesting thing to consider. Another thing that's interesting to consider is what might have been with this Jarvis Brownlee trade, because this goes back to some of the aforementioned intel that came up after the trade was announced. There was also some intel that came out that suggested that, wait for it, the New England Patriots and head coach Mike Vrabel may have also been in on the Jarvis Brownlee talks. And of course, I think this may or may not have to do with trolling the Patriots, trolling the Titans in many ways, because even though Mike Vrabel was not in the room when the Tennessee Titans drafted Jarvis Brownlee, it's just based on Mike Vrabel's personality in a lot of ways. Vrabes is kind of a troll at times. Okay, I'm thinking back to the wild card game in 2019, the year the Titans went on that big run to the AFC title game. I remember Mike Vrabel sort of trolling the Patriots with the rule book during the back half of that game. You all remember and if you don't, feel free to Google it, but he was basically trolling the Patriots with the rule book by getting all of these delay of games on a fourth down, which would have resulted in different things happening with the clock and how much time would have been able to run off and whatnot. He was basically trying to run out the clock by trolling the Patriots by being really smart about the knowledge of the rules of the NFL. It kind of makes sense when you spend all those years playing for Bill Belichick, which doesn't make a lot of sense now based on the way Bill Belichick's team is playing right now, but I digress. Shifting gears back to Jarvis Brownlee, it's just funny to me that the Patriots were also in on those trade discussions, apparently. And is that even true? Who knows? Is it just Mike Vrabel pumping out stories to try to further troll fan bases in many ways? I don't know. But very, very interesting situation with the Jarvis Brownlee trade. But we're just going to have to wait and see how that, from a Tennessee Titans perspective, we're just going to have to wait and see how everything unfolds. Obviously, a move like this signals to the younger guys like Marcus Harris, guys like Jalen Armour-Davis that the Titans just picked up from waivers. Obviously, it sends a signal to them that perhaps they are going to have to step up their games in the interim until they can figure out what to do at the cornerback spot. But very, very interesting situation in the Tennessee Titans defensive backfield, indeed. But shifting gears to the last thing I want to talk about, which is the hot take about Brian Callahan. Get a load of this. Because, and I'm glad that I'm talking about it now, because the longer I wait on this, the less hot this take becomes anyway. And this, of course, goes back in some ways to what I was just talking about with the Patriots. The Tennessee Titans host the New England Patriots in week 7, I believe. So just about 3 weeks from now. This, of course, means that Mike Vrabel will, in fact, be making his return to Nissan Stadium for the first time as the New England Patriots head coach. And my hot take is this: if Brian Callahan is not fired after this week 4 game against Houston, which is going to be kicking off in about an hour or so from now, from the time I am recording this broadcast, which it could very well happen. It's like I said before, it's kind of hard to find reasons for optimism surrounding the Tennessee Titans right now. It just is. You sort of have to come to the conclusion in your mind that there is a better chance than not that Brian Callahan will not finish the season as this team's head coach. It's painful for me to say that, but it is the reality of the situation. And if Brian Callahan does not find a way to turn it around and get things going, especially offensively, which who knows if this, as I said before, who knows if this change at the play calling position is going to work or not. Just if they cannot find a way to get the ball rolling, then if it does not happen today, then definitely after week 7, I think Brian Callahan could possibly very well be fired, because as we all know, Amy Adams-Strunk is not a stranger to making these sort of quote-unquote emotional decisions. I'm thinking going back to a couple of years ago when the Titans went up to Philadelphia post A.J. Brown trade and proceeded to let A.J. Brown mollywop the Tennessee Titans. And that is about as polite of a term as I can use without saying things that may or may not get me canceled, okay? The Titans pretty much got mollywopped in that game by A.J. Brown and the Philadelphia Eagles. It's almost like the Eagles went out of their way to make a point to get A.J. Brown involved in the game. And of course, we all know what happened after that game. The now thankfully, former general manager John Robinson was disposed of and was relieved of his duties as the general manager of the Titans. I think assuming Brian Callahan makes it to week 7 and the Titans do end up losing that game, I think we could see a similar situation take place here with Brian Callahan. If he allows Mike Vrabel to come in, and because the reason I say this is to some extent I and plenty of other Tennessee Titans fans out there would probably still like to see Mike Vrabel as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, just based on the way the last 2 years have played out. But just painful times for the Tennessee Titans. But that is my hot take. Assuming Brian Callahan makes it out of week 4 and week 5 and week 6, and makes it to week 7, and the Titans find a way to lose that game, assuming things have not been taken care of in-house as far as the on-field performance goes, I think there's a very reasonable possibility that Brian Callahan will be disposed of as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans after that game. And where would that leave the Titans going forward? I'm sure I'm going to have much more to say about that if this does end up happening. But in the meantime, as I say many times about many different issues, time is just going to have to tell the story. And with all of that being said, that is pretty much going to wrap it up for me today. I guess I'm going to hop off at this point and sort of finish up the Vikings-Steelers game as we all get ready for our NFL Sundays. I hope you all have a fantastic NFL Sunday yourself, and of course Monday night. And I know there's 2 Monday night games tomorrow night, but that's tomorrow night. But the game that I'm definitely looking forward to tonight are the Packers and the Cowboys, for obvious reasons that have to do with the Micah Parsons trade, which is why I'm looking forward to that game. I know many of you are looking forward to that game as well. But with all of that being said, that's going to wrap it up for me. I want to thank you all so much for watching this edition of the show. I very much appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time.